On your Tuesday episode of Locked On Raptors, Vivek Jacob is here, which means it's time to play a stupid little game.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, April the 29th, and I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work, that is, over on Blue Sky. You can also find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. And you can check out the Locked On Raptors newsletter, QR code on the screen if you want to subscribe. You can also go to the link in the description for that as well. It's 100% free. And today's show is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. We're off and running here on your Tuesday edition of Locked On Raptors as we're joined by our dear pal Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7, from Sportsnet, from Basketball Insiders, to play, of course, in the summertime. It's a stupid little game. And we have a new stupid little game for you. You know, you might be thinking, oh, it's going to be one of the old classics. So what's more likely? A would you rather? But no, we're playing Who You Got as it pertains to the Toronto Raptors and a bunch of teams they'll be competing for position next season. Here is the guy who invented the game indirectly. It was his concept. I just made it stupid and gamified. But Big V, how the hell are you, pal?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to playing this game. I'm looking forward to watching more great games in the NBA. Mm-hmm. I mean, Houston, Golden State, that was a really fun game last night, and obviously can't get enough of this Clippers Nuggets series. And all of that got me thinking, man, which of these teams can the Raptors handle?
Yeah, look, Clippers Nuggets, probably not either of those teams because they're damn good. But the Eastern Conference is a bit of a different beast. We will get into all of the teams that made the play-in or the playoffs with one little wild card team tossed in over the course of today. And the concept of who you got is simple. I will say the names of two teams. One of them will be the Toronto Raptors. The other will be the next year's version of whatever team comes up on our list here. And we just got to determine who we got, who's better, who's got a better chance of finishing ahead of whom in next year's Eastern Conference standings. You got the rules, Big V. Are you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Let's start with the team that just got swept more unceremoniously than I can recall a team getting swept, the Miami Heat. Whoo boy, they were not so good in that series against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They, of course, finished 10th in the Eastern Conference this year, but as is their right, they made it through the play-in into the playoffs and got crunched in round one by a far superior team. Big V, I will begin with you. Who you got? Next year's Raptors or next year's Heat?
I'm going to have to go with next year's Raptors, baby. I mean, especially when you see a team lose by a combined 92 points over the final two games, setting just insane records in just embarrassment and futility in a playoff setting. I think I'm going to have to go with the Raptors. Like, you look at the Heat. I think this is probably the most uncertainty that the franchise has faced since Dwayne Wade left in 2016. And, you know, they kind of had that playoff barren stretch. And then, of course, Jimmy Butler shows up in 2019 and everything changes. And I think we could be looking at something similar for the Heat here, because you look at, you know, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Khalil Ware, they're a good core, but you're missing that real star to put it together.
Tyler Hero's not doing it for you as a clear number one option? What? Crazy. Wow.
So, yeah. And then we don't know what's going to happen with Andrew Wiggins. So I think next year is a year where maybe the Heat take a bit of a hit. Obviously, there isn't going to be too much that they can do in free agency. So yeah, I think next year is a year they take a hit. And obviously the Raptors have primed themselves to be a very good team next season.
Yeah, of course, like with the Heat, there's always the Eric Spoelstra devil magic thing you got to consider because, they could see him down and out, and then he makes 3 G League guys into regular rotation players, and all of a sudden they're winning regular season games again. But yeah, like they're probably going to pay Davion Mitchell to stick around. And I'm sorry, Davion Mitchell covered himself in all kinds of glory in this 4-game sweep at the hands of the Cleveland Cavaliers for the Heat. But if he's your third leading scorer in a playoff series and someone you're paying likely to be a starter for you at guard, you got some problems. I'm sorry. And I don't love the depth on this team. Obviously, Khalil Ware, I think, is going to be very good eventually. Maybe he's take some time to come along. There was a big step back this year for Jaime Jaquez, who barely played in the playoffs at all. Duncan Robinson could barely get on the floor or stay on the floor or do anything productive on the floor. Like, this just isn't a team. They still have Kyle Anderson kicking around. It's not a team that, to me, looks like they're primed to make some kind of big internal leap with all the guys they have on hand. Yeah, maybe Tyler Hero gets a little better, though I think it'd be really hard for him to be as good as he was during this regular season. And I think the way he struggled in the playoffs is probably a little bit more indicative of what you can expect from Tyler Hero, number one option. And I think we know at this point that Bam Adebayo is a classic, he can't be your best player guy, which is fine. He's very good, but there are limitations that come with him as well. And yeah, barring some Miami Heat nonsense this summer where they happen into a star, Giannis says, send me there. And then no one else gets in on the mix or something. And he ends up there and they have a star all of a sudden once again to take over from Jimmy Butler. I think they're going to be in really tough to be any kind of good next year. I, too, have got the Raptors for next season because of, I think, organizational depth. And I think they're just more talented. Like up top to bottom, I would take the Raptors roster over the Heat roster pretty comfortably, admitting that, yes, Eric Spoelstra is an absolute wizard and could totally pull some stuff out of his ass. Let's go to the
next. In this series,
he could not even a little bit. Let's go now to Raptors Bulls. Who you got for next year? Big V, take it away.
I am going to go with the Raptors again.
Correct.
Look, I think the Bulls, this is probably, well, I shouldn't say probably because we've said probably for a couple of seasons now, but this is the season that they should move on from Nikola Vucevic and I think embrace a proper rebuild. They
4
seem
years,
to love
$90 million incoming.
Yeah, they seem to love the play-in tournament. But I do think that seeing the young pieces that they have, their core group is kind of in that same vein, right? It's like there's nice players there in Kobe White, in Ayo Dosunmu, in Josh Giddey with the way that he came on down the stretch. But is that really going to translate to winning at a high level? Probably not. And so I think, as much as they seem to love the play-in tournament, I think this is probably a time to just, recognize where they're at. And I think the way the contracts line up probably make it easier to do so. And it's kind of been a slow exit out of, DeMar and Caruso and Levine. And now that final piece is probably Vucevic.
Yeah, I mean, you say that this is the thing with the Bulls that's always tough to kind of square is the logical thing that they should do is never the thing that they actually do. And so what happens with Vucevic, I think, is any question. He could totally move on. He could totally re-up with them for many years and continue to kind of hemorrhage points on the defensive end for a team that, to me, has maybe the least overall defensive talent of any roster in the NBA. Kobe White, Josh Giddey, these guys are pylons. And I'm sorry to everyone who got tricked by the Bulls steamrolling their way through March. I don't buy any of it. Maybe Kobe White, maybe, but Josh Giddey, if you look at his career splits, March is like the only time he's ever been good in his entire career, the time when the whole league turns fake. I don't buy it at all. And I think to complicate matters, the Bulls are probably about to hand Josh Giddey a ton of money, and that's going to gum up their books quite a bit. Like, is there any way Josh Giddey doesn't go to the Bulls and say, well, I want more than Emmanuel Quickley money? And is there any way the Bulls don't do that? And is there any way that doesn't become a total disaster?
Oh, man, that is going to be a wild scenario. If he gets Emmanuel Quickley money, geez.
He might get like $40 million a year from the Bulls, man. I don't think that's off the table. They're the Bulls.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it's off the table. It would just be wild to see. I think Yeah, obviously that would just strap the franchise in for just another decade of,
9 seeds.
mediocrity at best.
Yeah, they got the Patrick Williams contract, which is an outright disaster. They gave Kevin Huerter heavy minutes down the stretch. Like, I don't know, man. It doesn't feel like this team's headed anywhere except for the 9th seed once again. I'm taking the Raptors pretty comfortably. We'll come back on the other side, rattle through some more teams. The Magic, will they ever get a guard to change how we feel about them? The Atlanta Hawks, are they just going to stay the Hawks forever? We'll do that and more coming up in just 1 second here on your Tuesday stupid little game edition of the show. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Look, I am someone I've talked about before in this ad copy. I have a lot of accounts on the go because I have a weird freelance job where I work for an American company, and I have an American account and I have Canadian accounts, and my wife has an account, and we have a shared account for our mortgage. It's all over the damn place. And Monarch Money gives us a place to just put it all into one list. Hey, account number 1, 2, 3, 4. You can go through, see where your money's at. It's super handy, especially this time of year. I got to pay taxes and stuff. It's great to know exactly where all my money's going and how much I still got left in the tank. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDINNBA at monarchmoney.com for $50 off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDINNBA for half off your first year. Back at it here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7 and Sportsnet and Basketball Insiders and cricket commentary and having good haircuts as we continue on with our little Who You Got game regarding the Raptors and the next year Eastern Conference hierarchy. Let's go to the Orlando Magic, who are still kicking against the Boston Celtics. I don't know if they're kicking terribly inspirationally. I know they got the one win. I know they've been kind of plucky because their defense is very good, but they still cannot score any points. And I have a hard time seeing them scoring any points anytime soon unless they go and get themselves a guard. So I think maybe more than any other team, at least in this play-in bunch, we'll talk about some teams in the playoffs with some big personnel questions this summer. This one is maybe the most subject to change of opinion with the right move for Orlando in the summer. But Big V, I'll ask you the question, who you got?
I gotta say, this is one of the trickier ones because I think the other thing that you have to factor in with the Magic is just how much they've missed Jalen Suggs. Mo Wagner obviously gives them some solid depth at the big position as well. And
yet their offense still sucks with both of them available.
Yeah, but I do think, Suggs, the way he came on this season, was really, really encouraging. He had some big scoring games as well. So I think that has to be factored in. And so, the fact that we've seen them increase their level is the one that makes you think that, okay, with a core like Paolo and Franz, that's going to be a tough duo to stop. And, we've seen the Orlando Magic kind of beat down the Raptors as well at times. So I think this is a really tricky one. And I am, for now, going to give a slight edge to the Orlando Magic. And part of why I say that is because when we talk about the Magic, yes, their offense does stink. The Raptors have not proven anything fancy offensively either. And then on the other side of the ball, I think we can confidently say that the Magic are a very, very good defensive team. And I am not there yet with the Raptors. Obviously, they had a great defensive rating down the stretch of the season, but we also know that they faced some really bad teams down the stretch. And so for that reason, I will give the edge to the Magic for now.
I think it's a fair and well-argued point, and I don't totally disagree. I think it's really going to be a battle of a team with an elite one end of the floor and a poo-poo other end of the floor. against a team in the Raptors that I think is kind of going to be middle of the pack-ish in both offense and defense. Maybe there's some upper mobility in one of those spots. Once you get Brandon Ingram in the mix, once you have your rookies kind of taking another step going into year two, I think they're going to be at least a competent offense where they're not near the bottom of the league. And we saw it at the start of the year, the first part of the season, with mostly Grady Dick and RJ Barrett upholding things against a very good schedule. They were in the top half of offense for at least a couple of months until things really started to crater. And so I think, yeah, it depends on what you think is their sort of better regular season recipe for success. I'd say the Magic are a more playoff proof team right now, just because they have that built-in defense and the big wing guys. That said, like, the Raptors are going to have their own big wing guys, assuming they get to the playoffs healthy with Ingram and Barnes. And I genuinely think, hey, Minnie, who you got? Paolo and Franz or Scotty and Ingram? Who you got?
Yeah, and I was just going to, when it came back to me, I was just going to say that the X factor in terms of tipping the scales in this is Ingram, because he's the guy, when you look at, the Raptors end of shot clock, playoff possessions, that type of environment, that's where Ingram can thrive and sort of say, hey, okay, we've got this under control. So I think in terms of a duo, Franz, it's weird seeing him with that hitch on his 3-point shot now. I think I will give, man, this is tough too. This is really, really tough. I think I have to give a slight edge right now to Orlando. I think, again, the body of work, we have to see Ingram healthy. We have to see him within the Raptors offense. We still don't know what that looks like. And so I think there's just too many unknowns with the Raptors to confidently say that, yes, they will absolutely be better than the Magic next season.
Yeah, you're making fair points, but at the same time, I hate the Magic. So Raptors, baby, that's who I got. Look, if the Magic get a guard this summer who can like dribble and stuff, I might change my calculus. I almost definitely will, because I think like a real lead guard with pull-up juice, with Suggs, Wagner, Boncaro, whichever of their mid centers is playing, I think is probably a better team than the Raptors, though their bench is pretty suspect. Is Cole Anthony still going to be around shooting like 34% from the field? Who's to say? I don't know. But yeah, if they get a guard, the whole thing changes for me. I think it's a very close sort of eye of the beholder thing right now. And my eyes behold that I like the Raptors better than the Magic, just because the Magic play garbage basketball that I can't stand watching. So yeah, let's go to the next one. Raptors Hawks. I think I struggle with this one maybe even more. Because we don't know what's going to happen with Trae Young. They just fired our dear pal Landry Fields. Who knows who's going to take over? It sounds like the owner's son is heavily involved, which is always very concerning when you think about a basketball team. And the Hawks are perennially like the most mid team there is. I think they would have been better, maybe even snuck into the playoffs had Jalen Johnson not gotten hurt, because he's very good and probably the most impactful guy at this point. Zachary Risachet was quite good as a rookie. Dyson Daniels, we know, is a very good defensive player. We'll see about sort of higher level offense and what he's capable of, though he made some serious strides this year. Who you got, Raptors or Hawks for next year?
I've got the Raptors. I do think that, the front office changes, it will signal the end of the Trae Young era. I do think that they will ultimately look to move on and just reset with this core of, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu, and Zachary Risachet. And I think, in terms of accelerating that core's development, they probably will see moving on from Trae Young as the best path to doing so. So, yeah, I don't know if that Hawks Magic deal is in the works, but I think that's something that could potentially make sense for both sides. And yeah, so I feel definitely more confident in the Raptors being better than the Hawks and the Magic.
Trae Young on the Magic, I cannot imagine a team I'd be less interested in watching. Period. No thanks, man. Just like an amalgamation of all of my least favorite things to watch. Orlando Magic jerseys, Paolo Boncaro dribbling the life out of the ball, Franz hitching his way to 28% from deep, and Trae Young being Trae Young. No thanks. Not into it. But yeah, with the Hawks, I guess I believe in the power of the wings. Of course, I'm a child of Vision 6'9". I think there's something there. And I'm not so certain they're going to move on from Trae Young. I think the idea of, as much as I'd be thrilled to see the ushering in of the Kobe Buffkin era, my boy, little Buffkin boys unite, I think it's pretty dubious to like have a team full of wings where you don't have a guard. Remember the Raptors with Dennis Schroeder as the lead guard with a bunch of wings. Not so hot. You got to have someone with some juice. And as much as Trae Young is not my flavor of player necessarily, he's got some modicum of juice to kind of tie things together. And so I'm not sure they're just going to move on from him willy-nilly. And if he doesn't end up on the Magic, then great. The Raptors are better than both. Awesome. I'll take the Raptors over the Hawks slightly. I do think the Raptors have a real shot of jumping up into the top four, top six, maybe top four. That's a tease. And I just, none of these teams are terribly scary to me. Again, the Magic are the kind of wild card. If they go and get a guard, then I'd probably put them ahead pretty comfortably. But yeah, it's not exactly the highest of bars to be better than any of these teams. They're all kind of doo-doo. We'll come back onto the side here. Actually, no, let's get one of these playoff teams in here before we rattle off a couple more guys, a couple more teams, and then the real contenders in the East. The Detroit Pistons. Giving the Knicks a bit of a run for their money right now. They're down 3-1, but it's been a close series. I've been sort of open with my skepticism that this is super built for the long haul unless they really get some contributions from their younger guys like Asar Thompson and Ron Holland, who, that's just a lot of not shooting to have it be functional going forward. They're really leaning on Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, and Tim Hardaway Jr., which it's great for them. I'm thrilled for Pistons fans. I'm not sure that's something you're capturing for a second season in a row in a bottle. And so, Beasley could leave in the summer for a lot of money or get paid a ton of money by the Pistons this summer, which could also be scary. Cade's really good. He's clearly like a floor raiser. He's obviously taken some massive strides. Who you got? Raptors or Pistons? I think this is a fascinating one.
So I think the Pistons, as much as impressive their rise has been, I think this season is kind of a case of, hey, the hard work is going to beat the talent when the talent doesn't work hard enough. And I think coming off a 14-win season, they have been able to catch teams off guard. And obviously that has amalgamated into their own confidence and juice. And obviously Cade has been awesome. So I think, there's good enough stuff to believe in that's emerged in this playoff series. But at the same time, no one's going to be sleeping on them next season.
No.
And I think that's where, when you look at the depth of the team, when you look at the high-end talent on the roster, obviously Jaden Ivey will be back, but beyond Cade, I think it's still tough to envision, them going up another level. I think it'd be more impressive if they can actually stay at this level than drop off next season. And for that reason, I will give the Raptors the edge.
Like it. I think I'm going to take the Pistons for two reasons. One of them is that they're clearly a try-hard team, and that's just good for winning a lot of games. And, even if you're not catching teams off guard, it's still a pain in the ass to play them night in, night out. They're probably going to win some games. I also they have a lot of financial wiggle room this summer. I wonder if they find themselves just taking on a star that maybe another team is just kind of tired of. You know what I mean? Kevin Durant really comes to mind. Kevin Durant on the Pistons would be extremely cool. He'd get to live out some weird Hooper fantasy. I don't know if he wants to do that or what, but it would be very fun to see Kevin Durant on Detroit, and I think there's a possibility of that. Honestly, they should have been a Brandon Ingram team, if we're being real. They should have been in the mix for that, just to get some extra creation and scoring on the team, some support for Cade. But I think they'll realize they can't just rest on their laurels from this season and expect the Beasley, Hardaway, Harris trio to continue to save their bacon. I think they'll do something, and so I'll say Pistons ahead of the Raptors. Again, we'll see if this could change if they don't do anything in the offseason, but they're right in that magic zone where I expect something to happen to kind of change how I feel right now. If this is the team that they have next year, I'm probably taking the Raptors, but trying to project forward a little bit of what I expect these teams to do. So there's that. We'll come back on the other side.
If KD is open to living in Detroit.
Hey man, the man just wants to hoop. Maybe he just wants to get away from it all and hoop. Who's to say? Either way, We're going to come back on the other side, rattle through the rest of the playoff teams, the contenders, and of course, a wild card team. We'll do that coming up to close things out in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. Spring is here, baby, and that means it's home project season. Whether you're refreshing a room or tackling a full renovation, Wayfair is the best kept secret for all things home improvement. I've talked about it on this show. I'm in the midst of doing some home rental work because we're expecting a baby in a couple of months, and we got to reshape our home a little bit to make sure we have the proper space and all of that. Renovated the room just next to this one, put in some new floors, did some paint, and now we got to fill it with some furniture. And I'm probably going to go and peruse what Wayfair's got because they just have wonderful deals and everything that you might need. Maybe you're looking at some outdoor furniture for the summertime as it's patio season, baby. Why go out to a patio when you can make the patio at home if you've got the space? Wayfair can help you do that as well. They have free and fast shipping. It's made so easy. No hauling heavy items from the store. Love that. Hate putting stuff in my car. And shopping is seamless. All you got to do is go on the site, find exactly what you need to fit your space and style. Wayfair makes home improvement easy. Get started now. Wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Wrapping it up here as we continue. Who you got with our pal Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7 and Sportsnet as we rattle through rapid fire the teams that are probably less likely to finish behind the Raptors next season. But this next one, big wild card, the Milwaukee Bucks. Not been a good couple of weeks for the Milwaukee Bucks. Extremely sad news on the Damian Lillard front, confirmed he has a torn Achilles. Absolute bummer of an injury. And it feels gross to be like, picking apart the husk of the Bucks right now. We're not really going to do that. We're not going to get into like Giannis trade ideas or anything like that. Nothing too ghoulish, but part of the game here is picking who you got for next year, Raptors or Bucks. Big V, who you got, Raptors or Bucks?
Yeah, first off, shouts to Dame. Like, just devastating to see something like that. And hopefully he can make a full recovery. And get back to at least an all-star level. But yeah, really tough to see. Looking at the prospects for next season, I think I'm going to have to go with the Raptors. I think logically speaking, like you look at that team, trading Chris Middleton for Kyle Kuzma, the complete lack of depth on that roster, which is really the biggest difference in this series between the Pacers and the Bucks. And the Pacers can just keep coming with guys and guys and guys. And Milwaukee, the second Giannis is off the floor, it's over, right?
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, the complete lack of financial flexibility, they have to even do anything about their team as it stands.
No picks either.
Yeah, no draft capital of note. So yeah, I think the Bucks are gonna fall pretty precipitously here next season.
Yeah, and like you don't want to think about it, but like one Giannis injury for a month, and they're probably out of the running pretty quick, and it might just become one of those. They don't know if they have their pick or if it's swaps or whatever, but just one of those lost seasons. Again, you hope that doesn't happen, and Giannis is the Terminator and never gets hurt, so that probably won't happen. They'll still have like a baseline of some level of competency because he's that good, but it's such a grim scene around him roster wise that I think it's fair to pick the Raptors ahead of the Bucks. It seems crazy. We keep on picking the Raptors over all these teams, but like the Raptors are going to be pretty good. Like they're pretty deep. They've got talent. Like, I don't know, man. I feel pretty all right. Expecting a bit of a jump here for Toronto. Let's get to a team I don't think they'll be passing. Raptors, Pacers. I got Pacers. The Pacers are damn good. They're super deep. They're built for the regular season and apparently the playoffs as well. Is this an easy one for you? Who you got?
Yeah, I'm taking the Pacers. Again, with the way the first half of the season was playing out and Tyrese not playing his best basketball, you're kind of like, what's going on with this team? They weren't defending as well as, they maybe did down the stretch of last season. So I think that was an area of concern. But then pretty much from the time that Aaron Nesmith came back, they've kind of shaped up and been all right. So and Miles Turner is like kind of found his old defense too. I think he's been awesome in this series, and I think down the stretch in general, He's been really good. So
they will have to figure out his free agency situation for them to maintain their level, but I'm sure they'll figure something out.
yeah. So yeah, I think for me right now, like you look at the depth, you look at how much depth matters in the league now, and then the way Tyrese and Pascal and Miles are playing, those young guys getting better, and Nembhard and Mathurin, Neesmith, like yeah, I'll take the Pacers.
Yeah. One of my favorite hypothetical fake trades, as it has been ever since the Pascal Siakam trade happened, is some way to turn Jakob Poeltl into Miles Turner. You reignite Yak and skills. Poeltl gives them a little more of a traditional rim running threat and rim protection. Turner becomes the spacing big Scotty Barnes has been yearning for. The Raptors draft Kaman Malawach to be their big rim protector guy. It's all very exciting to me. But until that happens, I'm taking the Pacers ahead of the Raptors because, yeah, they're just damn good. And as it turns out, Pascal Siakam, pretty good at basketball. Let's go through the three heavy hitters from the East this year. Knicks, Celtics, Cavs. Who you got against? Like, do you have the Raptors against any of those teams next year, or are they all finishing ahead of the Raptors? Who you got?
Yeah, they're all finishing ahead of the Raptors. I actually think the Knicks are probably going to do an honest assessment of themselves this season and say, hey, we gotta make some changes here to get to where we want to be. And when you swing as big as they swung for Mikal Bridges, I think changes are on the way. So I think they will actually level up and look at the Cavs and Celtics and say, hey, we got to do something to really get to that level. I think the Cavs and Celtics are the class of the East, and I hope we get to see that showdown. And yeah, I think the Raptors are a pretty fair distance away from those two for sure.
Yeah, I think people get real dumb talking about the Knicks, where it's like, well, they're not as good as the Celtics and Cavs. It's like, yeah, they're still awesome. Like, shut up. They have like a beautiful like basketball utopia starting five. It's awesome. And this was never meant to be a 1-year thing. They have all these guys under contract for like 4 years. They were always going to need a transaction window or two to figure things out after making the Towns trade so close to the season. And I think they'll figure it out. They've been pretty good at turning what they have into something more over the years. And yeah, they have less pick capital to work with now because the Mikal Bridges trade was insane. But like, I don't have any concerns they'll be able to find like some more functional depth and maybe swap in, find another starter, and maybe you swap out a Josh Hart or something like that and make Hart into a super 6-man, whatever. A 6-man who plays 43 minutes a game probably. But yeah, I think they're going to be just fine. The Celtics and Cavs are the Celtics and Cavs. They're amazing. The last team I want to get to here is our wild card team. They did not make the playoffs nor the play-in, but in theory, they're pretty talented and we're projected to be a top 4 team in the East this year. The Philadelphia 76ers. Big V, lots of questions. We have no idea about the health status of Joel Embiid. They can say all they want that he's going to make a full recovery. I'll believe it when I see it. It's unfortunate. It sucks. I wish Joel Embiid were healthy, but he's in his 30s, 7'2" big man who has knee problems and recurring knee problems, and he hasn't looked himself for over a year now. And I think it's genuinely fair to be concerned that he's maybe never going to get back to that level again. Paul George, also very old, also on a really bad contract, also gets hurt all the time. Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain are very good, but after that roster's kind of lean. Yeah, they might also add a very high pick, which would be very helpful too. But they also might lose their pick to the Thunder, which would be hilarious and awful for everybody because the Thunder would just keep on loading up into draft pick Voltron. But yeah, where are you at? Sixers or Raptors for next year? Who you got?
So I think this is a situation where I will probably lean Raptors, but I could see it being something where, again, they've got a load manage Embiid. They've got this new pick that's come in, and maybe Paul George is back to playing like Paul George, and they kind of work through the regular season, maybe the way they intended to this year. And then they actually are very difficult to deal with in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I could see the Raptors having a better regular season record, but I could absolutely see the Sixers taking down the Raptors in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. There's a lot of ifs with the Sixers and the health stuff and the age. is enough that I'll take the Raptors to finish ahead. I just like it takes more than 4 players to navigate an 82 game season. They can still make the play-in just fine and maybe make a run if they kind of reach that apex of health like you talked about. But if we're talking regular season, I'm going to take the Raptors just because I think they have more guys to get through a season with than Philly's going to have. And like we saw, like you put that much burden on Tyrese Maxey, it's going to be really challenging. And they just like don't have a supporting cast. They're like reserve guys. Like maybe Quentin Grimes really pops, or maybe some other team pays Quentin Grimes a whole lot of money and he walks away. Who's to say? But yeah, I don't quite see it this year or next year for the Sixers all coming together. Maybe a year after that, maybe some more recovery time for Embiid. We'll see, but there's the age and the injury stuff is just too much for me, I think, for the regular season question. So I'll say Raptors over Sixers as well. So I guess that both means we kind of have the Raptors in the top 6. I guess I have Cavs, Celtics, Knicks, Pacers for sure ahead. I have Pistons and Magic kind of as question mark teams ahead. And the Bucks, I think, are a question mark. That's a fair question mark as well because I respect Giannis so much. But 6 or 7 feel like kind of the place you're penciling the Raptors in for next year?
Yeah, I mean, or like 5 to 7,
Yeah.
I think is in play. I think the 4 that we mentioned, I would expect to be in those in the top 4 in some order. But after that, yeah, why not? Right? Like I think there's reason to doubt the Bucks. There's reason to doubt the Sixers. The Pistons, as you mentioned, you know, if they can figure out something with their cap room and get a legit star next to Cade, then that changes things. But if they come back pretty similar to what they look like this season, I can see the Raptors' depth winning out. So, yeah, I think somewhere between the 5 to 7 range, where 6 is maybe most likely, is where the Raptors net out.
Way to tease to another game that we could play on this here podcast, a stupid little game, if you will. We'll do that some other time. But Big V, thanks so much for being on the show this time, buddy. Have anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Usual stuff, Raptors in 7, Basketball Insiders, sportscasting, and you can follow it all at Vivek Jacob.
Hell yeah. You can find me at woodleyshawn.bsky.social on the sky. You can join the Discord, link in the description of the podcast, follow on Instagram, etc., etc. Newsletter, QR code on the screen, link in the description of the podcast. And we will talk to you again on Wednesdays. We'll probably do another draft episode, talk a little Ace Bailey on Wednesday's show. You have to look forward to. Lots of draft stuff as we talk about the guys who may not be in the Raptors wheelhouse after lottery night. So we'll do it while we can. We will talk to you then. Thanks so much for hanging out. Bye-bye. Damn it.